Hello folks, and welcome back to my channel. Today we're doing a review of one of the most suggested piercing aftercare products online, Bactine. That's right, if you have any piercings, if you talk about having them on the internet, especially on TikTok, you've probably had at least one person tell you that you should try putting Bactine on your piercing for aftercare. So let's take a closer look at why I really don't suggest using this product. To start, if we're talking about looking at piercing aftercare, it really helps to understand what wound care for piercing looks like and what is important with it. See, different types of wounds have different types of aftercare. You wouldn't treat a scrape or a paper cut on your hand the same way that you would treat a burn. And neither of those get treated the same way that we treat a sprain or a fracture or a twisted ankle. Different injuries require different forms of care, and piercings are no different than that. When we have a piercing, what we have is a puncture wound that has a foreign object trapped in it, and we actually want that foreign object to stay. We want the body to heal a fistula, or a tube of scar tissue around that foreign object. So it's basically advanced puncture wound aftercare. With puncture wounds, we know that we don't want to use anything that's going to clog the area because puncture wounds tend to have some natural drainage that can be important to allow to occur. So we're going to want to avoid most really heavy ointments, things that create a film or a barrier on the skin, unless it's necessary in a specific injury situation. So for puncture wounds, generally, we want to just irrigate them and keep them clean with something mild. We also don't want to use any products that are going to harm or damage the healing skin in the area. For example, peroxide has been well proven to damage healthy new growth tissue along with killing bacteria. So yeah, you put peroxide on a wound and it cleans it, but it's also killing the new skin and the new tissue that your body is growing and killing off good bacteria that needs to be there. So with puncture wounds and with body piercings, the current industry standard is using saline to irrigate and clean the wound, remove any debris or secretion, and just kind of monitor and maintain it as it heals. If you've ever had a port or a drain, you know that they tell you to just kind of keep it clean and leave it alone. Let your body do its thing around it, and piercings are very similar. The other important element of piercing aftercare is that these are wounds that are created in a clean, safe environment. When you're getting a body piercing done in a professional environment, ideally your piercer is using sterilized tools, sterilized needles and jewelry. Everything's been run through an autoclave. Your skin is being really thoroughly prepped beforehand. There are so many steps being taken to ensure that we're not introducing any bacteria into your piercing. A puncture wound that you get as part of the process of having a body piercing is completely different than the puncture wound that you get when you step on a rusty nail in your backyard or your animal bites you. If we were talking about a wound that was created where there was the really high potential for bacterial exposure or viral exposure, for just something bad to happen, we would be talking about a totally different set of aftercare and cleaning. But we are talking about a puncture wound that was made in a clean environment and in a clean way. So we don't have to worry about that initial bacterial exposure. Like I said, because of that, the industry standard is wound wash saline. It's sterile, it's clean, it's affordable, and it's very mild for most people. So now, let's look at Bactine in comparison to that industry standard. Bactine has two main active ingredients. One is a mild amount of lidocaine, which does help with numbing the surrounding tissues. However, lidocaine can cause some adverse reactions in some folks. And there are a lot of warnings that come with using products that contain lidocaine, and all of those are listed on Bactine's website. The other primary ingredient is benzalkonium chloride, sometimes abbreviated as BZK. BZK actually has uses in the piercing industry. Some studios use it as an alternative skin prep if a client has an iodine allergy and can't be prepped with iodine. And while BZK does have a place in wound care, puncture care, especially piercing care, is not really where it does its best. In fact, if you look at some of the drug sheets and MSDS information about BZK, a lot of them mention to consult a doctor if you have a puncture wound that you're considering cleaning with this. Because again, this is not a chemical that's really ideal for most puncture wounds, especially puncture wounds that have been created in a clean environment. In fact, when we talk about BZK and we look at some of the studies and the information presented, a lot of them speak favorably about the fact that BZK can create a film or a layer on the skin that prevents further bacteria from accessing a wound. And while this might sound great, this is a terrible idea for a puncture. A lot of that film is just going to build up on your jewelry, build up on the skin surrounding your piercing, and can eventually become an issue that's building up and collecting bacteria and dead skin cells and dirt and debris. But it's also just not allowing for the piercing to be able to drain the way it naturally wants it to. It's not allowing for irrigation in the area. The other thing people may consider is, oh, well, it has lidocaine, so it'll help my piercing feel a little bit better. Honestly, it's not going to make that much of a difference, and you would get the same effect just from taking some Tylenol, some Advil, or some Aleve. Now, the other important thing to consider when we're talking about wound care and what products we're putting on wounds, or really anything with medicine in general, is that we want to use things per manufacturer's guidelines and instructions. See, when products like Bactine get made, they do get rigorously tested by the FDA before they can be advertised for certain purposes, but they get tested for the purposes they're advertised towards. Bactine got lots of rigorous testing as an over-the-counter wound care spray for cuts and scrapes and abrasion. It didn't get any testing for us to put in our mouth and use on our teeth. And it also didn't get any testing for piercing. However, it did become widely popular for use on piercings in the early 2000s. So popular, in fact, that people were having problems caused by the use of Bactine, be it allergic reactions, chemical reactions in the skin, or it just causing problems with their piercings. Because again, it's not designed for puncture wounds, and the active ingredient in it is also listed with warnings everywhere about use on puncture wounds. In fact, there were so many people having problems with using Bactine on their piercing that right on Bactine's website it says, we cannot recommend this product for use on your body piercing because a piercing is a puncture wound. Please consult a doctor. So when the makers of the product themselves say, hey, please don't use this product in this way, it's not designed for it, it's not the right wound type for it, they're trying to cover their asses because people were using this product, people still are using this product on their piercings, and it's not designed for piercings, and people are getting hurt, people are having problems happen with their piercings, and they're going to Bactine and going, why was I allowed to put this on my piercing? It caused me so many issues. And now Bactine can go and say, well, we put it right on our website. Don't put it on your piercings. That's not our fault that you didn't read that. And honestly, good on them for doing that. I'm sure they were tired of dealing with those complaints and didn't want to deal with any lawsuits from their product being suggested incorrectly. I think I understand the desire for products like Bactine or putting things on your piercing because a lot of people want to feel like they're doing something more when it comes to healing their piercing. They want to feel like there's some magical product that they can put on that's going to make their piercing heal better or faster or fix whatever problems they're dealing with. And unfortunately, when it comes to wound care, especially wound care like a body piercing where we're talking about long-term formation of a scar, your body is what's healing that wound. There is no magical product that you can put on it that is going to make your body heal differently or faster or anything like that. If a product like that existed, trust me, we would all know about it. We would be using it on every popped pimple we ever had on our face to not have to deal with dark spots or acne scarring. It doesn't, however. How we heal is really determined by our body, our immune system, our health, our nutrition, the type of wound we have, how it was made, so many different factors. The best way that we can allow our bodies to heal well is to use a product that doesn't potentially cause any harm or make healing more difficult. Something like saline wound wash that's going to be mild and effective. Products like Bactine, sure, seem in the short term like this magical fix or cure-all for your piercing, but they really aren't once we break down at a chemical level what's in these products and how it works for wound care. Now, the cool thing about science and medicine is that it's always changing and it's always growing. And yes, I would love it if in 10 or 20 years I could sit down and make a video and say, we have new aftercare for piercings. We've found something that works better and makes them heal better. I would love to have that conversation because I heal piercings horribly. I have autoimmune conditions and skin conditions that make healing for me really difficult. So a magical wound care product that make that easier would totally change my life as much as it would change everyone else's lives. But until something like that exists and until it's been really thoroughly studied and peer-reviewed and found to be safer and more beneficial than the current product we have, saline wound wash, it's not something that anyone should be suggesting we put on our piercings. It's not something professionals should be telling you to use, and it's just not something I would use at all. And if you're wondering at home if I would consider it a red flag if your piercer told you to put Bactine on your piercing, yeah, I would. Now, just a note, because it always comes up, what about Bactine and tattoos? I am not a tattoo artist, so I don't personally feel like I have too much room to speak, but I know a lot of times when tattoo artists are using Bactine, they're focusing on the lidocaine component of it to offer some numbing and some decrease in sensitivity during the tattoo. Lidocaine also can work as a vasoconstrictor, and it can sometimes remove a little bit of redness. So sometimes tattoo artists will use Bactine in preparation for taking pictures of their tattoo to kind of reduce some of the redness shown. I haven't done a look at the efficacy of like the wound type of tattoos and Bactine's intended purposes, but from my limited understanding, I think it's safe for that. And Bactine hasn't come out with any statements like, hey, please stop putting this on your tattoos. So I'm imagining it didn't cause nearly as much of an issue for tattoos as it did for piercings. Again, consider the fact that tattoo artists have been using Bactine for tattoos for just as long as piercers have, and the company did not need to make a statement telling them not to do it, because not as many people were getting hurt. People were using it and it was fine. So that should also go to show you why it's really not a good idea to put this product on your piercing. So overall, my takeaway from this is please don't put Bactine on your piercing. The company itself's takeaway from this is please don't put Bactine on your piercing. So you know what? Just don't put it on your piercings. I hope this video helps, and I think I want to do a couple more reviewing different common products that I see people talk about or ask about when it comes to piercing aftercare, so let me know in the comments if there's any products in particular you'd like to see me do a deep dive on or talk about, or if there's any particular chemicals you'd like me to talk about more in depth as they relate to piercing wound care. As per usual, if you like this video, please hit like and subscribe. Your support means the world to me, and I can't wait to sit down and chat again soon. Bye!